The world around us is changing faster than ever before. Ideas once only imagined in science fiction are becoming a reality. Throughout the course of our amazing 23-episode season, we'll speak to some of the greatest minds in robotics and artificial intelligence to discuss the groundbreaking work that's fueling it all. I'm your host, Ryan Marine. Join me and my co-host, Paul Mitchell, the president of the Indy Autonomous Challenge, and see why we call this the Inside Track. Every year, racing and automotive tech seems to become more advanced. In this special episode, we'll examine this concept further by revisiting our old 2023 predictions. The question for you listeners at home is this: how do our predictions stack up to the reality of 2024? Does what we know now about the integration with universities, industry, and government agencies match our original predictions? What more will we learn in the years to come? It's now August of 2023. It's been about 8 months since this project got started. My name is Ryan Marine. Paul Mitchell from the Indy Autonomous Challenge joining us once again to basically get an update, a status report on where we are, and also at the end a little glimpse into the future for the IAC as well. But I think since the last time we sat down and really gave a big tent overview of where this project stood, we've had a lot of exciting things that have happened, including a trip overseas, a couple trips overseas. So let's let folks know exactly what the IAC has been up to here in the last few months.
Yeah, so after CES in January, we made this strategic decision to pivot from having run exclusively on ovals to taking on the new challenge of running on a road course. And we announced at CES that we were going to do that at Monza, the F1 circuit in Europe, in Italy. And it's the oldest racetrack in Europe. It's arguably the oldest circuit for a road course in the world. And I think we were excited to make that announcement, but didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. So we had never taken these cars overseas. We had no resources on the ground in Europe or in Italy. We have some teams that are over there, so that was a help. But so there was a lot of learning for the organization of just like what it means to bring a motorsports operation overseas. It's a lot of work, but also was just a tremendous amount of fun and exciting for the teams, exciting for sponsors. Because we made the decision to go there so late in the game, we were really limited in our practice times. So we had to work around the track's schedule, which meant we got the cars over there in April, so only a couple months after CES before they were loaded up. Sent them over there by airplane, which is expensive endeavor.
Yes. And complicated too.
And complicated, yeah. Got them all to Monza, and thanks to the people in Monza and the organization MIMO, which is the Milan Monza Motor Show organization that we have our partnership with, they were so accommodating. They opened up a facility right on the grounds there that had a small garage and some office space that we were able to store the cars and work out of. And then they basically helped us build a schedule to try to get as close as we could to about 8 practice days. But it involved us having to do some evening sessions. So we would go out after the client was done, and we'd go on the track from like 6:30 till 9 o'clock. Or in some cases, we had morning sessions where we go in very early. It was like a totally different experience for our AI drivers, to try to figure out this challenge of a road course. We're used to going to an oval, and maybe by the end of the first day, our cars are up at 150, 160 miles an hour. It took several practices, several days before the cars were really able to get up even to 100 miles an hour. Because they were trying to figure out this whole new challenge of turning right and left. The other thing we encountered was the fact that road courses, in particular at Monza, you've got bridges and trees and other structures that create these dead zones for GPS connectivity. And so it took a while for the teams to sort of change their algorithms to be less sensitive to drop-offs in GPS, which is actually, from a technological standpoint, really important learning and R&D for these universities and for our sponsors to figure out. But it was a little nerve-wracking because every time a car would go under a bridge, the car would start wobbling, in some cases come to a stop, and But by the end, we made history again. We had cars that were, reaching 170 miles an hour. Our top lap was 2 minutes and 5 seconds, which is, not on par with the top F1, or I guess our car is probably closer to like an F3 car, but not that far off if you think about the horsepower trade-off and aerodynamic trade-off. So it was a respectable runs that several of our teams were able to achieve by the end of the time there.
The ingenuity of these college students, it never ceases to amaze. One dynamic I think is super interesting, if we go back to the early days of the IAC, it was a lot of European institutions coming over, embedding themselves in the United States, and maybe having some homesickness, being away from friends and family, and the American teams being there to support them. I imagine the shoe was on the other foot when we went over to Italy.
It was. So we had there was just one U.S. team that went. We had two that were planning to go, and unfortunately at the last minute, the team, AI Tech Racing, led by University of Hawaii, for a variety of reasons, had to pull out. But the Mid-Pit RW team was over there from the beginning to the end. They had people in country. They did some trade-off. People would go home and come back. It wasn't quite as dramatic as the summer of 2021 when people came over here and they couldn't go back because of COVID. They had to stay here literally the whole time. But yeah, no, they got exposed to the European culture and way of life, and the teams that are based there. Of course, Monza is very close to the Polytechnic in Milano, so that team was kind of the home team, the host team, if you will. For IEC, for our operations, we had staff that were there from April until July. I think most of them enjoyed it. It's not a bad place to spend your summer. And we did get some help from local vendors and local partners. We had some interns that were graduate students at Polytechnic in Milano. We had some staff from the Milan Monza Motor Show. The people at the Monza track were just incredibly generous with their time and support. But yeah, no, it was definitely kind of this multicultural experience, and it just is a symbol of the fact that Indy Autonomous Challenge is a global activity, and it made sense for us to go to Europe. That's where we have some of our top teams, and we've had a big following in Italy. They've been following us there, not just because of the success of the Italian teams, but I think in general, the motorsports community there is quite interested in technology and cars. They seem to be bigger fans of Ferrari than they are of any particular driver.
Right.
So it's not as much of a change for them to get excited about a car that doesn't have a driver in it. And we saw that. The general public was very, very positive. We had families with kids and multiple generations coming into the garage during the 3 days of the Milan Monza Motor Show, wanting to see the cars, wanting to meet the teams. It's the first time I saw people asking teams for autographs, which was interesting.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, usually little kids that sort of looked up to these students as STEM superstars, which they are, which is kind of neat. And the last day of our competition, which was a time trial competition only. So in our first year, we didn't attempt overtaking and passing like we do on ovals. We limited it to just time trials. But the last day of the time trials was actually pretty compelling. The top three teams were separated only by about 9 seconds in their lap time. And we had about 12,000 people that came and sat in the grandstands to watch the final three runs. Now, they were there for the broader Milan Monza Motor Show, but they were choosing to forego other things on the grounds and come in and sit and watch it. And it was really, for us, the first time we've had a big crowd like that was cheering and excited about the race, which was a lot of fun.
And that's, of course, an iconic venue there at Monza. And also, the IAC was involved in another iconic motorsports event in the Goodwood Festival of Speed.
We did. It was a decision we made after CES, when we knew that the cars were going over to Monza. We had this previous dialogue with Goodwood about bringing a car there to participate in their Future Lab exhibition, which is a curated kind of sort of like a museum exhibition where they showcase cutting edge technology in automotive and mobility. So they wanted to put one of our cars in Future Lab, and we said, okay, but we also want to do a map, an autonomous map of the hill climb.
Right.
So we have the potential to come back next year and actually do an autonomous hill climb. and they were all for it. So they allowed us two of our teams. It was actually the Technical University of Munich team, and then the MITPIT RW team, which had been in Europe from the Monza event. And we brought those two cars, and the Saturday before Goodwood, when they basically had the hill climb set up, but before all the festivities had started, they let us do some very low speed kind of test runs to basically map the course so we can begin modeling and preparing for a hill climb run next year. So it was done on the down low, wasn't really a publicized activity. The reception of the car inside the Future Lab was really outstanding, and I think we're excited to go back in 2024 and see if we can't set a record for an autonomous hill climb. I don't think we'll reach the speeds that the world records are set there on a pretty regular basis for human-driven vehicles, but I'm fingers crossed we can get there for an autonomous vehicle and at least throw up a respectable time.
Exactly. The presence that you've had in the U.S., starting with an event at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a couple events at CES, plus one at Texas Motor Speedway, do you feel like here, stateside at least, you kind of reached the audience that you were going to reach? And with that in mind, how important then is it to branch out, take this technology to Europe and showcase it to a new set of eyes, a new set of interested spectators that might not have heard about this otherwise?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a reflection of the fact that the automotive industry is so global. The autonomous mobility industry is perhaps even more global. You have companies in Europe, in Asia, in the United States that are all racing towards this strategic challenge of autonomous mobility, or at least, let's say, level 4 autonomous mobility. So still maybe a human in the loop, maybe a driver behind the wheel that can take over, but providing a lot of those safety systems. And to just show it in the United States, you're missing kind of 2/3 of the industry and of the talent that's needed to bring this technology to the real world. We have these international universities that are involved. I think it's important that we acknowledge their participation by kind of rewarding them with events in their backyards. Clearly, the European universities were thrilled to be there. They showed up with big crowds and big groups, the way our U.S. universities do when events are held here in the United States. And I also think it's a reflection of the level of interest and support from government. So, India Autonomous Challenge would not exist without the support of the Indiana Economic Development Corporation and more broadly the state of Indiana. When we decided to go over to Europe, to Monza, we knew we needed the support of the local government there. And so we built up a relationship together with the Indiana Economic Development Corporation with the region of Lombardy, which is essentially the state where Milan is the capital of the state within Italy. And it's a big part of the Italian economy. It's where a lot of the heavy industry and automotive centers of excellence are. And so, we had meetings with government leaders in Lombardia. There was a delegation that went over from the United States, from the state of Indiana. And, we have, whether we go there or not in the near term, I don't know, but we have a team in Korea. There's a lot of strong linkages between Indiana and Korea as well. And so I think using India Autonomous Challenge to reach out to the broader audience, the industry, but also these government-to-government connections that we know are needed, because the regulatory environment and the government is going to have to be one of the key players in ushering in this future of autonomous mobility and understanding kind of what the rules and regulations need to be for that technology.
Well, that gives us a little glimpse into the future, so let's use that as a jumping off point. What does the next 12 to 18 months look like for the India Autonomous Challenge?
So 2024 is going to be a banner year for India Autonomous Challenge. I think if you look at our history for the last 2 to 3 years, it's really been this journey into the unknown, where we're trying something new and different, and you don't exactly know what the results are going to be. For 24, we're taking the approach of saying, okay, how do we put all these capabilities together into a series of events that are highly compelling from a technology innovation standpoint, but also a catalyst for bringing industry, government, and academia together, and really celebrate, what we've achieved. And to do that, we've got a pretty aggressive schedule. It's going to start with CES in January, so we'll be back there. We love CES. It's such a perfect fit for our activity. The teams love being there. Of course, the sponsors are generally all there anyways. The media is there. So, what we're going to be doing this year at CES is debuting sort of the new car, the AV24, which will still look similar to the cars that people are familiar with, but the tech inside the car will be almost completely updated. So the most cutting edge technology, and I'll leave the details and the bits and pieces about what's going to be different until we're able to talk about it more publicly. But needless to say, we're going to have the most advanced autonomous race car in the world, and it is a significant improvement on the current vehicle in terms of capabilities, processing power, sensor capabilities, drive-by-wire, et cetera. A lot of it is improvements that we realize are needed to take this kind of product to the next level that we've learned through thousands and thousands of miles of high-speed autonomous operations. I mean, we are the only organization in the world that has been running these autonomous vehicles year after year, thousands of miles, and you learn a lot through that process. So we have the improved car that'll be debuted at CES. We'll still have the legacy cars there running in a passing competition, but we will showcase at the CES the new vehicle. Then after CES, all of the cars will be transformed into this AV24 platform, and we'll be headed back to Europe for a race at Monza. Extremely excited. This time we plan to have passing as part of the competition. We haven't settled quite on the rule set, but we have this unique partnership that we established this year with ACI, the Automobile Club of Italia, which is sort of the FIA for Italy, which granted us the world's first AI motorsports driver's licenses for our teams and sanctioned our time trial competition. So we're going to work with them to craft a rule set that really is the next iteration of autonomous motorsport. So we're excited about that. That looks like that'll be sometime at late June as part of the Milan Monza Motor Show. Then the cars will go to Goodwood, probably not all the teams, but maybe 2 or 3 teams to attempt the hill climb, hopefully set a world record there for an autonomous hill climb. Cars will come back to the US and we'll return to where it all began at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at the end of the summer, early fall time frame for an oval competition. What's really cool is that we're planning to link the Monza event and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway event as sort of a 2-phased race of 2 worlds. And so for people that are students of motorsport and know history of motorsport, they'll know that in 1957, 1958, you had this Race of 2 Worlds branded event that was held at Monza, at that time on an oval that is kind of still partially intact, but not utilized for races. And you had US Indy 500 drivers at the time racing against Formula One drivers, and it's really the only time that they went head-to-head in a direct competition. I think the IndyCar or Indy 500 drivers won both years.
Yes.
And the legend is that the Formula One drivers were supposed to come back to the US to reciprocate and participate in the Indy 500 or some type of race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Of course, that didn't happen. So we're trying to sort of bring that history back and say this is a modern race of 2 worlds, showcasing this new technology at Monza, at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we'll find some really cool ways to connect those events. So perhaps the winner has to do the best or score points in both stages of the competition. I think it'd be really cool to see the historical connections there, and frankly reach a broader audience by showcasing these vehicles in Europe and then in the United States in a competitive manner.
So cool to link probably the 2 most iconic motorsports venues on the planet.
Yeah, definitely the two oldest. I think Indianapolis Motor Speedway is the oldest. Monza is really the second oldest from a fully operational track. I think Monza is hosted the most Formula One races in a row. Indy, of course, is the oldest ongoing race with the Indy 500. And frankly, the fact that we get to run on a road course and an oval is really cool.
Throw a little hill climb in there for a few of the teams as well.
That's right. So it's this sort of back to the future year where we're taking this purely modern, AI-driven technology and showcasing it at these historic venues in Europe and in the United States. Maybe the last thing that it is figure out how to throw in the Pikes Peak at some point. Yeah, but otherwise, I think we've got a really exciting year next year. And as I said, the goal is not just to run these events as one-off events, but to find a way to use them to catalyze the interest and the awareness of technology innovation, talent development, government collaboration with industry and academia. And so as we get closer to these events, we'll roll out a whole series of activities that will happen at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway together with the state of Indiana and the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. That'll happen at Monza together with the region of Lombardia and the Milan Monza Motor Show, so that the on-track activities will certainly be the highlight, but there'll be lots of other ways for companies, for entrepreneurs, for innovators to engage and network and collaborate around these events.
If we go back to 2021, there might have been a perception that it was a one-off stunt at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but with plans like these, I think any notion of that sort has been thoroughly put to bed.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't be wrong. I mean, I think the original thesis was this is a prize competition.
Right.
You run a prize competition to see what happens and see if somebody can achieve the goal or the objective. In all honesty, we didn't hit the original objective, which is a 10-car race of 20 laps at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we adjusted the rule set to make it still very much a stretch goal for this technology and where it is today. But we'll see how the rule set changes for our event at IMS next year. I don't want to predispose where we're going to be, but I think we're going to be much closer to that original vision than maybe people think we are. And so I'm very excited to see that by the end of 2024, I think we'll have a product that starts to become more race-worthy, if you will, of putting on a motorsports race or competition that, while not trying to replace or even compete with human drivers, can earn the respect of those that are purists when it comes to motorsports and what they expect to see in a motorsports race.
Well, let's close with this then. You've had a little bit of time perhaps to reflect on just how far this project has come. I mean, you were quite forthright just a moment ago about what the goals were initially, and it's remarkable how much this has grown. It's ballooned from the original goals that you set out to accomplish. How much pride do you take in that, and how excited are you about what the future holds?
Well, I mean, look, I think the credit really goes to this explosion of innovation that occurs when you get industry, academia, and government to all swim in the same direction. And we don't see that a lot in society today, but we know that when it happens, you can really leapfrog technology, innovation, and kind of reach new heights. And but for the support of the state of Indiana and the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, these industry partners who are donating millions of dollars worth of cutting edge technology that typically is only in the hands of the top automakers in their early market entries or prototype vehicles, and then the best and brightest minds of these top engineering research universities around the world, finding a way to get all three of them working together beyond a one-off. So I think everyone sort of said, okay, let's try this prize competition, see how it goes, see if it's successful, because there's sort of a history of these prize competitions. But the fact that they have stayed on with us and continued this journey, I think is what I take the most pride in, because we saw something in October of 2021 that was a first of its kind, incredible, but also realized there was so much more that needed to be done, and people wanted to stick with it to get there. And so, I hope we can get closer to that original objective in our 2024 activities, and then beyond 2024, we'll see where we go and where this technology and the industry partners and government, takes us.
Incredibly exciting to see how far it's come. Can't wait to see what the future holds as well. Thanks for the update, Paul.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks for joining us on this special episode of The Inside Track. I'm your host, Ryan Marine. Follow us on social media and let us know your predictions for 2024 and beyond. Let us know where you believe autonomous motorsports is heading. Join us next time to hear more amazing stories from the world of autonomous racing and vehicles.